When we hear people talk about the trades, how come they don't talk about the landscape professionals?
That's where the happiness is in business, is the incremental improvement.
We have something called CFIs, and they're crazy fucking ideas, and I come up with all of them.
I don't know if I get past 20%. I get the ideas, and then I have to find a way to share them as fast as possible.
IDS. Identify the issue, discuss it, and solve it. The most impactful thing is when it doesn't come from the owner.
It's a $1,000 mistake, but it's a $100,000 opportunity. I have to look in the mirror and say, like, what am I doing that's impacting their confidence to the degree that they're afraid to make a move?
Being curious,
Yep.
I think that's the most two important words in the world.
For sure.
Just be curious.
All right, welcome. I've got Ivan Katz from Great Lakes Landscape Design here with me today. I'm super excited to have him here. He's a seasoned expert in running a business and just an all-around great person. He's got an incredible story, lots to share. Excited to have him here on the show. Ivan, maybe just kick off by telling us a little bit about where you are today, a little bit about your company and a little background on who you are.
What I like to tell people is that I'm an overnight success in 35 years. I started the company in 1989. We're celebrating our 35th anniversary this year. We started in 1989, and basically I did it with my grandfather's Malibu Classic. And one of my father's friends gave us a motorcycle trailer, if you will, and we rebuilt it. We tore it down to the guts and then rebuilt that thing. And we just kind of went out and started doing basically annuals, flowers. Hey, I need you to rip out these bushes, whatever we could do to just get out there and have work to do. Sometimes I call myself archaic because all I really wanted to do was work, and the hours didn't matter, and the more I worked, the better I felt. So
it sounds like that didn't go away. I know that you did an Ironman.
Yeah, so I have done 8 Ironman.
Yeah.
Completed them. You know, honestly, that came about because I'm a recovering addict. So I'm celebrating 29 years clean.
Wow.
And that was something for
Congratulations.
me that, you know, that was a healthy addiction
Yeah.
that I could overcome.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was something that, you know, always, it gave me a goal. You know, you can't just show up and do that. So it would give me something to work for.
Yeah.
Gave me another community of peers and people that, you know, these are hard driven,
Yeah.
successful people. And you'll hear that and see that in all these groups talking about peer groups and people and who you surround yourself with and,
Yeah.
you know, really kind of getting after it. So at full staff last year, we were around 60 people.
Yeah.
I'm proud to say that we offer full-time year-round employment now for our employees. And currently we're around 35, 36 people will be at my facility on any given day, doing anything from, with no snow,
Yeah.
where my warehouse is now all painted.
Yeah.
We're putting in additional facilities for the guys. We're upgrading our operational area. Our clientele is now, I mean, we've had a lot of iterations throughout the 35 years. Now where we're really dialed in on is high-end residential design build
Yeah.
and maintenance. And then in the wintertime, we primarily work for commercial properties, looking for industrial, manufacturing. We're just trying to stay away from the property managers because there's no real relationships there.
Yep.
Once they leave, we lose that relationship. So really focusing on the actual relationship. How can we elevate it? How can we make it even better so that we're actually the ones managing the property for them?
Yeah.
So if our costs are a little bit higher, we eliminate the need for a property manager who quite frankly steps right on top of our fee.
Yep.
And if we're really doing our jobs, they don't need the property manager.
That's right.
So,
Yeah.
you know, really just kind of changing what we do. Like at year 3, we bought a lawn company. I had never cut lawn before, and we bought it. It had 60 accounts. We turned it in before we even cut a blade of grass. We had 225 residential accounts and 2 full days of commercial work. And the guy that came with it was a friend of my little brother's who was on our crew. And he showed up late. We had to get started. I'd never used a mower. Man, I came home so sore that day. That machine threw me around the belt-driven Skags.
Oh, yeah. The old, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it just took me, but we got through the day. He showed up. He's like, why are you guys so worried? And I'm like, he goes, it's just, we only got to do 10 lawns today. And I'm like, no, like, we got 225 lawns and plus we got to go do these buildings.
Yeah.
So really quickly, we figured that out. And then
That's why you were buying his business.
Yeah. It wasn't his business. He just kind of came
he
with
came
it.
with it. Okay. Got it.
So yeah, that was, who knows? I mean, that was my first foray into an acquisition, and I don't regret it. I put that guy through dental school.
Oh, wow.
So that was kind of cool.
That is cool.
So then we kind of just started adding on different services, trying to figure out what we were. Really liked the landscaping part of it. That really spoke to me. Added brick pavers, and just kind of continued to grow throughout the years to where we are now.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Which I will say is a lot more enjoyable.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I think often where I like to kind of focus is helping people find the happiness in running a business, because I think a lot of times early stage startups, they get into business and they're so passionate about it that they're having fun, and there's a lot of fuel with that excitement of getting started. And that fuel, it burns out at some point, whether it's 1 year, 2 years, 3, 4. A lot of businesses go out of business in the first 4 years. And I think for experienced, successful business people like yourself to share, and you really do share, the secrets to kind of getting past that is big. Looking back, what would you say to yourself, as who you are now to who you were then? What would you say that you didn't know that you'd love to kind of say to yourself?
I would have run my company then like I was going to be $100 million company.
Right. Yeah.
Because when you have to undo the special favors, why does this guy get to have a beer at 3:00 in the afternoon? Well, he shouldn't.
Yeah.
Why are we tolerating that? Why does this guy, not have to come in on Saturdays ever?
Right.
Why does he have more PTO than everyone else?
Yeah.
So like really standardizing everything, having your systems in place, coming to events like this and really trying to dig in.
Yeah.
I mean, I got involved in our local association early.
Oh, you did? Yeah.
I
okay,
did
good.
after 2 years. And I wish I would have had an open mind or have been exposed to some of the more robust items and conferences that were out there and taken the time to go and see them. I was fortunate enough to be tapped by the executive director to be on the board.
Yeah.
And so that was gave me the opportunity to kind of sit on a board with a lot of really, really well-respected guys that I looked up to, like even Troy and I.
Yeah.
Like we were friends. We've been friends for over 30 years. We're in the same market. And, we have a lot of the same values and ideals. And, sometimes we can rub people the wrong way, but, that's okay.
Yeah.
So getting to work with people like that and then starting that interaction where, hey, we're in the same market, but how often are we really competing?
Right.
Mark, how often are we giving a proposal on the same job?
Yeah.
I'd rather lose to you knowing that you know what it is you're doing.
Yeah.
Than somebody that maybe doesn't treat themselves like a professional.
Yep.
When we hear people talk about the trades, how come they don't talk about the landscape professionals?
Yeah. Yeah.
That drives me nuts.
Yeah.
And then I bring people now to my facility. They're like, we had no idea, almost apologetically.
Yeah.
We intentionally bring people there so that they have an understanding of what it really takes to do what it is that we do.
Yeah.
Because it's not a joke and it's not easy and not everybody can do it.
No, it's so true. As you went through those early years of the struggles that most of us go through to find the way, to find those systems and the processes and the discipline to just do the right thing and build people and service customers to the level that you should. Where did you seek that kind of guidance? Who did you learn from? I mean, the association is incredible, and I share that, and definitely getting involved in the association, sitting on boards and committees and meeting peers and learning from peers was a really big one for me in those first sort of 5 to 10 years. And I did the same, oddly enough. And it was about my second year in business. As you start to evolve and the problems change, and what else did you do to sort of get out of that? Conferences you mentioned?
Right. So while I was starting this, I was in college. I got a bachelor's degree in marketing and advertising. I worked in the food service industry. I worked in a lot of different service type industries, all the way going back to when I was a kid and I had a paper route. And you had to get those papers there on time. Then you had to go collect your money. And, why did some people tip and why did some people not tip? And,
Yep.
What was the secret sauce? And I'd go collect on the worst snowstorm night of the year, because then I'd get hot chocolate and bigger tips because you were out. And so I think it was really just like, it's almost like I had really good mentors. The guys that own these restaurants were very successful. I had one guy in particular. He just we're on stage, right? He kept his parking lot immaculate. He constantly changed the carpet.
Yeah.
He constantly improved it because he wanted his clientele to know that they were going to have the best experience possible.
Yep.
And that's why he was able to sustain it.
Yeah.
And I think that was something that I ingrained. I had my wife, I've been married now, it's be 30 years this year.
Yeah.
We've been together. We met when I started this company, and she's endured all this with me. She's amazing. So her grandfather had a term, it was called Showtime.
Yeah.
Right? And he had a furniture business, and when they would deliver the furniture, they would roll out a red carpet. Right? So it's really just about how you present yourself. We keep our facility clean, we keep our trucks clean, our guys are in uniforms, because that says a lot. If those guys are that clean, then they're going to take care of my property.
Yep.
And that's what I want. And as you continue to elevate and raise the expectations, guess what? The expectations don't go down.
Right.
They only go up.
Yes.
So how are you doing that? So like mentors, I have a brother-in-law, their family is extremely successful. And so sitting down with him and just asking questions, being curious.
Yep.
I think that's the most two important words in the world.
For sure.
Just be curious.
Yeah.
If you're a Ted Lasso fan.
Oh, I love it. Yeah,
Like he's right. Be curious. We had an employee. We never understood why he wouldn't come to team events. And unfortunately, last year, his wife passed away. And unbeknownst to any of us, she had cancer this whole time. So be curious. We never judged him, but we just didn't understand. And he wasn't willing to share. And it's his story to tell.
Sure.
However, we're just there to support him. We supported him through that. And, how do you get a guy, how do you do that, right?
Yeah.
5 kids. Now he's got to do that. And then think about that. So what's our role in that? So, it permeates throughout the company, and then it comes back to the clients.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of it, we talked a lot about it this weekend, is just be human.
Yes.
It matters. I think I mentioned it on stage. You don't know when people come to work, you don't know their story unless you ask.
Right.
And if you're fortunate enough to take the time to get to understand it, it really does create an environment where they'll be vulnerable, they'll participate. I'm happy to say now that when we have a company event, our participation's pretty good. Our annual party, we had 98% attendance.
Wow. That's incredible.
We had a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So we had a mariachi band, I've been trying to get one in for 3 years, and they finally delivered for me. And
it
was
good. Good.
They got it, and they made it happen. We did we had one of those cash vaults.
Yeah.
So we took all the money out of the vending machines that we had been accumulating and sliced in a few larger bills, and then raffled off tickets. And then these guys were going in there. So the first guy went in and he got a few bucks. And I think the guy that got the most was like $600 or $800.
Oh, wow.
So
That's
just
so
watching
cool.
them figuring it out, and then watching each other, and then they'd come out and they'd give the next guy advice.
Yeah.
And then so ultimately everybody went in, started getting more and more money.
Yeah.
So just
having fun
stuff like that. I won or lost, depending on how you look at it. I was elected to be in the dunk tank. So I think it's trying different things, talking to different people, and it doesn't have to just be from within the industry. So I started off in a peer group called EO.
Yep.
And so I was on a forum for over 20 years with a group of guys from different businesses that I learned just all kinds of stuff. What it means to, who are you? I've heard someone call it, I'm an 80% guy. I like to get it to a certain point, and then I lose interest, and it's I'm done. What that does to me is they said, now you got to find that person that can get it all the way to the end.
Right. Yeah.
So lessons like that, and
I think I'm a 20% guy. I don't know
Yeah.
if I don't know if I get past 20%. I get the ideas, and then I have to find a way to share them as fast as possible to get other people as excited about it as I am. But I mean, I think us entrepreneurs have that, right?
Right.
It's like we can't quite get it to the end because we want to create more opportunity. And it's
Correct.
always not just for yourself. And I really see that with you.
Right.
You're probably getting it to 80% so that you can create more opportunity for everybody in the organization by moving on a bit. And I really saw that come through in getting to know you a bit this week.
I'd be interested. That'd be a great question to go back to my team. Am I an 80% guy or am I really only 50? Like, what do I give you guys? Because I think sometimes I give them 5%.
Yeah.
And that was something, honestly, that I had to learn about myself.
Yeah.
Was that I wasn't, my wife will tell you the same thing. You didn't say that to me. And I'm like, I did. She goes, no, you said it in your head. You never said it out loud.
Yep.
And she was right. Like, I hate to have to admit that I have a lot of these thoughts. I have constant thoughts. And I think that's part of being an entrepreneur. Like, we have something called CFIs, and they're crazy fucking ideas. And I come up with all of them.
Yeah.
And it's my job to come up with them. And it's my COO's job to keep my feet on the ground.
Yeah.
And, that's a balance that's been amazing.
Yes.
Right. Having somebody, and I have to be humble because you can't grow without people. It's just that simple.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when you can grow your people, it's the most rewarding thing that I've ever experienced.
Absolutely.
And that's like the last 4 years or 5 years or whatever it's been, the journey that we've been on. I've never had as much fun as I'm having right now. You talked about burnout. You talk about when do you get out of the way? And, I think for me, it's when I'm in the way. Misery loves company. It's always good to know you're in good company. It's always good to know you're not the only one feeling that way, because you're up here, you don't know. And that's where peer groups come in, and you got 50 other people in a group out here that you can share that with.
Yeah. Yeah. I like to dive into that deeply because I think as an entrepreneur, it can be oddly lonely for many people until they realize the power of actually really truly working with other people and understanding that as you really focus on developing the people, that disappears because you're bonded to them in that way. And I think oftentimes the leader thinks they have to make everything perfect on their own. And for me, it probably my first 15 years or so in business, I took so much upon myself to make it right that in the process I isolated myself and didn't take advantage of just how much everybody wanted to help. And I think that coming to that realization earlier in a career for a small business owner would change everything. And I think really, you kind of mentioned you were a 35-year success. And like when you talk about these last 5 years, tell me a little bit about the realization that you've come to probably over 35 years in finding that level of happiness from like working with people and leading people and seeing the results of your efforts in developing them as opposed to just developing the business maybe.
So it's interesting. So you talked about being perfect. So it brings up a couple points, and hopefully I can tie it back for you. One of them is I went on a retreat, one of my first retreats with EO. We were out in Tahoe, and we did Mount Rose. There was like a ropes course.
Yeah.
And one of the exercises was there's 2 trees with a metal chain, like a 1-inch metal chain from one tree to the other, 2 feet off the ground, and you had to walk across. Nobody could get across. And I finally got on, and I'm like, I'm like, there's no way to take a perfect step. It's just not going to happen. So I looked ahead and I walked right across, and it's like, oh my God, everything's not going to be perfect.
Yeah.
There is no such thing as perfect.
Yeah.
So that was like, okay, I'm not perfect. Now I got to go back and explain to my team that I got flaws.
Yeah.
So rather than hiding the flaws, embrace your flaws and
Yep.
go back and be humble with the team. So I started developing this different mindset where be vulnerable with them and just tell them. One of the other things in the last 5 years that's happened is because I was everything, be all, end all, and some of that was self-inflicted and some of it was we went through some difficult times. I went through an embezzlement in 2007,
Oh,
but it's okay. It was I learned a great lesson.
yep.
And I tell everyone about it, not because I'm proud, but I'm proud that we got through it.
Yep.
9 out of 10 companies would have folded.
Yep.
Proud because I don't want anyone else to go through it.
Right.
And it's not that you can't trust.
Yep.
It's that there are certain things you don't need to trust people with.
Right.
So I had to go through all that again.
Yes.
I had to learn how to trust people. So now I'm trying to build this leadership team. I'm trying to grow a business. I have a lack of trust, but and verify. And then ultimately you learn, okay, if I really want these people to succeed, I have to allow them to do it. So now you've got people that have been with you 15 years, you're elevating people around them. Mm-hmm. And then now they're always used to coming to you.
Yeah.
Or you had all the answers. So now it's learning, okay, they come to me, well, what do you want me to do? And it's like, what do you think we should do? And I want to hear what you think first, because I'm not going to answer the question. And really kind of flipping the script, and then just simply saying, you know what, I need you to make the decision.
Yeah.
And whatever you do, it's fine.
That is a turning point for many of us. How do you create a safe enough environment where people believe that, though? And because I think we all struggle with this. I struggle with it to this day. When you tell people it's okay to just make a decision, and if it's wrong, we'll live with it, learn from it, and move on and create improvements. How do you actually create that safety and that trust so that they've got the confidence to do that? Because when I see a lack of confidence in my employees, I have to look in the mirror and say, like, what am I doing that's impacting their confidence to the degree that they're afraid to make a move? And so that safety piece, what have you learned in your career there?
I think it goes back to, first and foremost, as a leader, how do you show up? One of the things that I like to say to people is, look, you're going to make mistakes, but you will never make a more expensive mistake than I've made. I can pretty much promise you that.
Yeah.
If you do, you need to be accountable for it.
Yeah.
And then we're going to have a conversation about it.
Yeah.
But then really quickly, we're going to figure out what we learned. Because some of the most expensive lessons that I've learned have brought me to where I am now.
Right.
So you just got to believe in that, right? Would I be where I am today without those things happening to me? There's a term I love is wartime CEO, and I seem to have a lot of adversity. When I write a book, the title will be What Could Go Wrong?
Yeah.
But then taking that mentality, you don't want to always wait, and I don't want to operate in a company that I'm waiting for something to go wrong. But I had to operate in a way where, okay, we're going to talk about these things. We're not going to hide from them. You have somebody cuts a low voltage lighting wire and they don't repair it. It causes havoc.
Yeah.
You don't treat a wound. It gets infected.
Yeah.
You can't fix it. So I think it's really just about creating that. And we do something in our company called Clear the Air. They're conversations, they're hard conversations, they're facilitated conversations by either myself or my COO.
Yeah.
And, recently, one of my operations production managers who's been with me for over 20 years, Hector, he ran one himself.
Yeah.
And did a phenomenal job. Usually there's more than one person in the room so that it can be facilitated and people can, really, get into what it is. Because if conflict remains, it's not good. It's not good for a company.
Right.
It's not healthy for the staff. Then people hold grudges. So if people are willing to get into a room and be honest, right? And then it's core values. What are our core values?
Yeah.
One of them is hire. Honesty, integrity, respect, and education.
Yeah.
You gotta respect other people.
So when you've got, let's say, an employee that comes forward and they've found a gap in the business, and maybe it's a quality issue, maybe it's a safety issue, maybe it's an efficiency issue, and they bring those ideas forward to you. What does ideation and collaboration look like in your company? I think a lot of like earlier stage business owners that don't have the 35 years experience struggle because, you know, when the team does speak up and when you've created a culture where people can tell you what's wrong, oftentimes they're so busy running the business that they just don't make the time to actually do anything with that information. How did you transition in your leadership style to create the time to focus on hearing what people are saying, but then doing something about it? Because I, you know, from talking and with you, I can see that you've evolved into that type of a leader. And that evolution, I think a lot of people just can't see that pathway or finding the time. Oftentimes people will come along and say to me, how do you find the time to do all of this? So could you share, you know, your thoughts there?
So back in about 2016, we started to implement EOS. It's an entrepreneurial operating system. And I think it was one of the smartest things I ever did. You know, it took a long time for it to get hold. You know, obviously we're 8 years in and we're still learning from it. But what it did was it put in a structure. It put in a time and a place. You know, we have L10 meetings. So, you know, our leadership team has them. All our divisions have them. Even our production employees have them.
Yeah.
And this is a time and a place where we talk and solve issues, IDS.
Yeah.
Identify the issue, discuss it, and solve it. And some of them are simple. Why do we have to wait for hearing protection? Why do we have to go to ask someone for it? You know, Uline delivers in a day.
Yeah.
So we had a gumball dispenser for hearing protection.
Yeah.
And then if you wanted a different type, we took orders for them.
Sure. Yeah.
So there's low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
And you got to make it happen really, really quick.
Yeah.
Because if people don't see results, you lose momentum. They
Right.
will not bring anything forward. Well, they're never going to change anything. But when a guy says, well, every crew wants their own Vermeer, you know, and you got 8 crews, you know, it's $520,000. That doesn't happen. I can't call Uline and have 5 Vermeers on site the next day. But okay, we're going to talk about that. And I think that giving everybody that opportunity, we do monthly team buildings and then quarterly team meetings where we talk about where we're at, what are our victories, what are our celebrations, and we have roundtables. And we talk about things like, what benefits do you guys have? I mean, this was the evolution to where we are today. What benefits do you guys want? Well, why don't we have health insurance? It's a great question.
Yeah.
Why don't we have dental? Why don't we have vision? Why don't we have a retirement plan?
Yeah.
How come we don't have PTO, right? So fast forward, we have it all now.
From meeting and
From
talking.
meeting and talking about it. And none of it was driven by me.
Yeah.
The most impactful thing is when it doesn't come from the owner.
Right.
When your staff can say, well, I want this. And I just sat back, I took a deep breath and I listened and I said, okay. And the only thing I challenged everyone is okay, now how are we going to pay for it?
Yeah.
How do we work that into the budget?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, first we got to figure out how much that costs.
Yes.
What does that look like?
Yeah.
What does that budget look like?
Surrounding yourself with people who understand what it takes to make it happen.
And they got to make it happen.
Yeah.
Right? You want to see someone really succeed? They got to make it happen.
Yeah.
I went through an exercise, basically call it a head trash exercise. And I identified that my head trash was if I sold to my full potential, they couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
And I came clean.
Yeah.
And I literally said, you guys can't handle it. And they all looked at me and in clean language, they said, bring it.
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about? So that was the fact that I could be that honest with them.
Yeah.
You know, they gave me the permission. They have permission to be honest with me, you know, going through the peer group. There was a lot. I mean, one of the things that came back was like, why are you always angry at the end of the year?
Yeah.
So I gave them an answer. And I told them, because there's people that work here and I'm treating them the same way as I'm treating you, but you treat my business like it's your own and they don't.
Yeah.
Why am I treating him the same way as you?
Yeah.
Do you think he deserves what you deserve? And I got like these wide-eyed looks and responses that were like, no, they don't. So why are we tolerating that? I was at a conference and someone said, you have the business you deserve. And I was like, oh shit.
It's a reflection of your leadership, right? At the
That
end of the
that
day.
was that was a
Yeah.
huge wake-up call for me, because I'm like, they're right. I'm not going to deal with it anymore.
Yeah.
We aren't going to deal with it.
Yeah.
It couldn't just be me.
No.
But when I gave everyone permission, we'll do less work. Let's just do less work. Well, how are we going to keep up? Well, we'll do less people. We'll cherry pick work.
Yep.
And we come to work to be happy. We come to make money, but we don't, who wants to go to work and be miserable?
We only want to make money to be happy. So when we learn to just seek out happiness, money seems to just kind of,
doesn't it?
yeah.
So
Yeah.
that brings us to like our mission. I talked about it. We wrote it and it really sounded cool. I felt really good about it until I really understood what it really meant for the company, for me. They talk about culture. Someone said it. It's when you can feel it.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, like this is real. Like people come into our building and they're like, oh my God, there's something going on here.
Yeah.
And then, people stick around and they're not going to go. There's nothing wrong with turnover. Sometimes you need it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sometimes people need to go. Sometimes people, because they need to find something bigger for themselves.
Absolutely.
Or they need to go find happiness because they're no longer satisfied by what they're doing. But it's nice when you don't have to worry about replacing 30 people a year.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely.
It's daunting.
Yeah, it is for sure. As we kind of come to the end here, I want to hear your thoughts on just how much having an operating system like that helped you evolve and create a common language. You've shared it. Would you say the turning point in your career was stumbling across a way of communicating using an operating system like that? For me, I definitely feel like it allowed me to step out of like the loneliness when I was able to find a way to set goals, share those goals, and then create a meeting cadence that created continuous improvement and a way of communicating. And I like to share that as often as possible because it was a big turning point for me. Would you say that was one of the main things in your career, or is it sort of more secondary? And it's fine. I just love to hear.
I think as long as you go into it understanding that it doesn't happen quickly,
Right.
then it's okay. I'm not a very patient guy sometimes because I just want it to happen right away.
Yeah.
So as long as you can understand, so for me, it made sense.
Yeah.
Like I got a logical mind and I'm like, oh, nothing is random. Everything is scheduled, right? You got to take it seriously. It's like when you join a peer group, what are you going to do with that information? You're going to spend a lot of money. They're not doing the work. Nobody does the work for you. We still got to go do the work. I have an entrepreneurial operating system. We had a coach. We monetized it. People looked at it and said, wait a minute, you're going to invest, and that guy was the first year, $17,000 or $18,000, consulting, peer groups, coaching, $60,000. So these things, when you tell your staff, I'm investing in you, you're not spending money, you're making an investment. I think that's where the critical piece that ties back. I don't think people look at it that way.
Right.
Like, education, we took 12 people to a conference, including operational and production people. And for them to be like, you're investing in me, education, training. So having a system that allows you to keep things routine.
Yeah.
Everybody does the same thing.
Yeah.
Nobody's special.
Yeah.
Nobody's different.
Yeah.
Everybody gets reviewed mid-year and annually.
Yeah.
This is one of the best parts, I think, of it is not trying to do too much at once.
Yes.
You can't do
It
everything.
Forces you to focus on fewer things and move. I know with the EOS
Right.
rocks,
Right.
move a few things forward, and then you're going to see progression rather than having 1,000 things moving an inch at a time. You've got 4 or 5 big initiatives that are actually going to make the
Right.
biggest difference. And for that reason, it takes so much patience, as you pointed
Right.
out.
It takes patience, but it allows you to identify what is going to have the biggest impact. Every year I rewrite the 3-year vision.
Yep.
Every year we go down and we have a strategic planning and annual meeting, and it's facilitated, and we invest in that because we deserve it, and that's how we're going to continue to grow and create these opportunities. Because here's the funny thing about growth: it's hard to stop.
Yeah.
Because people they see what you're doing, and they want opportunity.
Yes.
And then some people get to the bus stop and they're like, okay, I'm good here.
Yeah.
And you need those people.
Absolutely.
I've got a guy who just always wants to run a lawn crew. Gave him a high five. This is great.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about replacing you for how many more years?
Yep.
You're 40.
Yep.
You're going to work for 20 more years? I'm
Yep.
good.
Perfect.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what about the guy that wants my job? Or what about the guy that wants, the COO seat? How are we going to afford them that kind of an opportunity? And that's part of the growth, but it's pretty rewarding. So I'm a big fan of it. I think it's not a secret weapon, but it's been a weapon for us. I think it's differentiated, us in terms of our organization, how we operate, and it streamlines everything for everybody. Right now, I'm trying to get out of sales, so that if I want to sell my business in 3 years, it's ready.
Yes.
And when you say that to your people, it's not hey, I'm selling in 3 years. It's if we have a company that doesn't rely on me, it's better for them.
Absolutely.
And because I've taken them to these conferences, because I've invested in them, and because I'm honest with them, because they know what that means. They know I'm not leaving in 3 years, but they know that a business that could be sold is only better for them.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
So again, transparency. So with these systems in place, we can have these conversations.
That's incredible.
It's all built on trust.
And so as we wrap up, an operating system is not common language for a lot of landscape businesses. Is there a book that you'd recommend that landscapers would read, or a name to seek out, to see what EOS is, and maybe consider how they could deploy a system like that in their business to create that common language and mindset, I think, so that everybody does bond the way they have in your company?
Yeah. So we gave everybody the book, What the Heck is EOS?
Yeah.
So that was a good one. They make it in English and Spanish.
Yep.
We had everybody read it. Traction.
Yep.
Rocket fuel. I think, those are the same. There's other variations of it, and I'm fine what works for you.
Yep.
What works for me may not work for you, and then just kind of go with it. But I was fortunate enough to be around other people and have other friends and companies that are utilizing it. And it's like, what am I waiting for? What am I doing? I'm trying to do this all on my own, and it's never going to work.
Yeah.
When you realize that, and then you start surrounding yourself with people that you can bring the best out of, it changes your role, right? That's my role really, is to be the greatest coach, cheerleader, mentor. I walk around the shop in the morning and I know everyone's name.
Yep.
I try to figure out if they got kids, if they don't have kids.
Yep.
Learn their language, speak their language.
Yep.
And sometimes it's just a fist bump and a high five. And one funny thing is, through the peer group, one of my guys made a mistake on a job, and I walked up to him and I gave him a high five. He's like, "What's that for?" I'm like, "You made a mistake."
I love that.
I said, "But you're never going to make that again, are you?"
Yeah.
And he goes, "No."
No.
So you asked about, how do you make it
It's
safe?
$1,000 mistake, but
Right.
it's $100,000 opportunity, because if we learn from it,
If we learn
then you just made us 100,000.
right.
It's a high
Right.
five moment. Yeah, I love
But
that.
the systems, the processes, you standardizing everything, how else are you supposed to do it? How do you train a new person?
Yeah.
It's chaos.
Yeah.
It's no longer can you fog a mirror to get in here.
Yeah.
Now we're going to create a video, because we went around and the question to everybody, which we got answers from everybody, was, if somebody new starts here, what do they need to know about working here?
Yes.
But it can't come from me. It's gotta
No.
come from everyone else. If it comes from me, I'm just the greedy ogre owner, but it does take on a different life when, it's a guy that they're working next to, and he says, if you're going to work here, you got to bring your lunch, put it in the truck. Don't leave it in your car.
No.
We need to get out of here, because we want our productivity incentives.
Yeah.
You know, we want to win crew of the month.
Yeah.
What does that look like? You know, and I'm not doing all the work for you, man.
That's
you gotta
when
help.
that's when culture takes over,
Right.
and I mean, ultimately, that's a great note to close on. Is like when you've taken the time to evolve as a leader, and you've deployed an operating system, and you've created a culture of trust and transparency, and the culture becomes one of continuous improvement, and that becomes the way it is.
Right.
Then the culture leads the company instead
Right.
of you.
It leads everything, but it's never ending, right? It's
Right.
constantly like, I think we do a lot of really cool stuff, and then you see Paul Pierre up there, and it's
Yeah.
like, yes,
We
like
can-
I'm driving over there.
That's
You're
next.
20 minutes away.
Yeah.
Will you be in town next week?
Yeah.
Or we're going to talk, and I'm going to come look because I'm challenged now. How do you keep it fresh?
Yes.
How do you
Yeah.
keep it real? How does it? You don't want it to end.
No, that's where the happiness is in business, is the
Yeah.
incremental improvement. And when you put yourself out there and you meet peers, you find that next idea, you find that motivation, you can see it, and
Yep.
and that is where the
Doesn't have
fun's
to be
hiding.
big change.
No,
You know, they talk about the greatest analogy is Usain Bolt. Guy trained for 4 years to run less than 10 seconds.
Yeah, yeah.
Then he comes back 4 years later to beat his world record by what, 100th of a second?
yeah,
So how much do you got to change on a daily basis?
yeah,
It doesn't take much, but as long as we're changing and innovating and working together, that's where the fun is.
amazing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. I really appreciate all that advice. I know it's going to impact a lot of lives, so thank you for sharing.
Beautiful. Thanks for having me on. It was great.
All right.